Welcome everybody to the 11th episode of Golden Gulch, and in this episode we are going to be going right and diving all the way into the Mexican area. Last episode we started with the train and we got that completed. That is more of the entrance to the Mexican area, dividing the other area. It's going to be across the little road and pathway. So this area is going to be fully and strictly Mexican area, or Mexican themed, and that's what we're going to be working on. So the first thing that we did was place down our little flat ride. We're going to be placing down one other flat ride, and then that's going to be all we do in this episode. So it's going to be a little bit shorter, not as long as the normal episodes, but I really think that I get a lot done in this episode, and it's as much as I wanted to get done. Because I wanted to have all of the rides and all of that kind of stuff, the queues, in place before I actually went into the shops, just so I knew what areas I had to work with. So I placed down the aeronauts, which is that balloon ride, and then I had this kind of Ferris wheel, but it's not really a Ferris wheel. It's like one of those ones that you spin around in. I don't know what it's called in game or anything, but it's a pretty crazy ride, and it really kind of fits in that little nook, and I like how it fits into this area as a whole. So those are the two rides that we're adding today. Next episode, we should be going on to making some more rides. Just a little bit of foreshadowing there. And then after that, we'll be going into maybe our lagoon little restaurant. And then after that, we should be getting into the really fun and detailed Mexican culture stuff with the shops and all that. So that's all to come with this. And something that I've started in this area is not having curb on the pathing. So I had to put in all the fences, and it really just looks a lot sleeker and stuff. So that's just a little kind of tip that I've been using right now. You can see with all the pathing and stuff. It looks a lot cleaner and stuff. But now that we have the two rides in place, I thought they were fit into this Mexican theme pretty well. We're gonna go on to theming them. So for this, our Ferris wheel area, we already have the fencing down, and we're actually gonna just do some covers, and then we're actually doing some string lighting that's gonna be carried on from our little train. And speaking of the train, we'll be naming that today. Something really, really just generic and stuff. But that'll come at near the end of the episode when we actually hit that. But right now, we are still gonna be working on our Ferris wheel. We got a couple of things that are going to be going on. We just did some lighting, and now we're about to do the like a roof, and then we're gonna move on to our aeronauts ride. And the aeronauts, I like that name. I might change it to something more of like a world class name or something. I don't really know what I'm gonna call this one though, the Ferris wheel. Right now, like as I was naming the building, I just called it like egg roll because that's what I'm used to seeing these named as. But it won't stay as that name. If you guys have any suggestions at all, you guys can let me know. Like I think the balloon ride I'm just gonna call like culture balloons or something like that. Something that's really generic for that ride that's really actually typically named that stuff. So those are gonna be the name situations, but I'm always open to suggestions if you have them. Then speaking of what we're doing right now, we made our little roof with arch shapes actually, and we're using these like pillars, poles I guess you could call it. Like they're used in like the city poles or something like that. And then we just made those as like a support pillar for all of this. And then we're actually going to go through and do some top decorations for this so that it just gives a little bit more texture to it. So that's going to be practically it for this area over here. And then we're going to go into our middle area, which is going to do a bunch of foliage and some benches. And we're actually going to do our aeronauts, our world balloons. I don't know what I'm going to name them yet, but they're going to get named something along those lines. I'm just going to call it the balloon ride right now, but we're going to do the foliage over there as well. So we got to finish up this area with some rocks and foliage, just because the fences for some reason, or not for some reason, but they're just a bit too big to fit in perfectly. So I just did some foliage to finish off the line. I did not add a priority pass to either of these rides. I figured they didn't really need it, although I think I am getting away from it too much. I think in the coming rides, I do need to get those in as well. And I think the priority pass is really just going to be used for roller coasters and the water rides that are paired with it, and some of the bigger flat rides that are more popular. I don't think these rides are popular. compared to more of the other ones. But we're moving on to the center section. You saw that I placed down two huge trees that really kind of fill in the area. And then I'm doing this trick where you place down benches along a area. I used the adventure ones just because they're kind of low and flat and there's nothing sticking up behind them. And then I covered them with the adventure, like I think it's a sign, but I pulled them up and I covered them up. So now when people are actually walking through the area, they will sit on that little ledge, and it looks like they're just using that as something to sit on instead of just sitting on regular benches, which I think is a little bit unique. I've seen it done multiple times, and I wanted to give it a go for myself. So for the rest of these little plaza areas that are planters, I guess you could call them, we're just gonna fill in a bunch of foliage here. Uh, Again, I wanted, or not really, compared to the rest of the park, this is going to be more of the more planted areas. There's going to be a lot more plants and colors around here compared to like the village where it's less trees and more of like the little dried out plants and stuff. And that's going to be more of a theme through the western part. But this is a Mexican area and there's a lot of plants and there's more lively things going on here. And I wanted that to really come across with the little planters here. So I think that's what I've accomplished that really well. And another trick that I kind of used, since we don't have curbs on the pathing, I used rocks to make it a little bit more jagged. People will probably walk through them because that's what people do. Um, and I think that's actually a little bit realistic though, because you have those kids that go and jump on rocks and walk around rocks and stuff, which I might be guilty of just because it's pretty fun to do. But now we're actually moving on to the third part, and we're going to be dressing up our little balloon ride. And this one was actually a little bit tougher to put trees around. I had to make sure that they weren't running into the ride since the ride does swing around. So you'll see me once placed a lot down. I will test the ride and make sure that it is clearing the trees well, and it's not a safety hazard or anything. And then this area is also going to get a good amount of foliage. But going towards the other side of the path on the other side of the train, it gets a little bit less since it's kind of a divider. So I wanted it to kind of fade into that more of less planted area and more of a dried out state. So that's what is kind of going on here. You could see that I placed a couple of drier plants down with little pops of color as I got over on that side. But that's pretty much what we have going on in this episode. We're almost done. As I said, it's a super short episode, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys really did enjoy it. I said that twice, but that's okay. Now we're naming the train, which is Mexican trains, something basic. We're gonna place some bins down, and that's it. So thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to have an amazing day.